Hello, Forecaster here, and in this video we are going to take a look at Railcraft routing again. So, setting right off, there are 5 things in Railcraft routing that you're going to want to know how to use. And we have those 5 things down here. We have the routing table, of course. We have the golden ticket, the regular ticket, the routing detector, and the routing switch motor. Now, these 2 blocks are the only 2 blocks in Railcraft that accept routing tables. So you will use these to route things. And the items are what you use to set the routing table is what you use to define the rules that control the routing. And the tickets are used to set destinations for locomotives. Now, the golden ticket is easily crafted with a piece of paper and a golden nugget, and it can be opened by right-clicking with it, which will show you this interface where you can enter a text string, and we're going to get to these later. The regular ticket cannot be crafted on its own. You need a golden ticket, and you craft that with another piece of paper, and it will give you a railway ticket, and this ticket will have the same string as the golden ticket had when you crafted it. And you cannot change or edit the railway ticket after it's been crafted, and it is single use. Now, the golden ticket will not be used up by anything. When you put it in a locomotive, you will be able to take it back out, and the same way when you craft with it, you will get it back. The routing table can be opened and is similar to a book and quill. The key difference, beyond being able to define routing logic, of course, is that you can't finalize it. You can name it, but this will not lock it down. You'll still be able to edit it. It does contain a help section, which has the operators, 3 of them, and all of the conditions that you can use. And we're going to go through all of those in this video. And we're going to wait with the destination one for last, and we're going to start with the owner condition. So, clearing my inventory. In here, we have a routing table, which has the owner condition, and I've set it to Forecaster. We're going to put that in this switch motor here. Now, this locomotive right here, I placed myself, which means that I am the owner. And if you want to check that, you can use a magnifying glass on it, and you can see that it was placed by me. So if I send this locomotive down this line, because the routing table is set to owner equals Forecaster, and this is owned by Forecaster, it's going to return true and send the locomotive down the switched track. So let's remove that. Now, this cart dispenser I placed manually myself as a block, and as a result I am the owner of this cart dispenser. So because of that, any locomotive placed by this cart dispenser is also going to be owned by me. So this locomotive will also be routed down the separate track because I am the owner. Let's see, there we go. So it's going to be switched off to the side track. This cart dispenser, however, I placed using a command, so it has a different owner, as you can see. square brackets Railcraft. So this locomotive is owned by Railcraft. So because this locomotive is not owned by Forecaster, it is not going to engage the switch and is going to continue straight ahead, like so. So next up we have the name condition, and this refers to the name of the locomotive itself. And you can change this name with an anvil, like you would for any other item. And as you can see, we have 3 locomotives here. One is called Steve, one is called Jobs, and this one has no name. So this first routing table, name equals Steve, we are going to put in here. This one has name equals null, so we're going to put that in here. And then this one has name equals not null. Now, when you enter name equals null, that will match any locomotive that does not have a custom name. So this will match Steve only. So any locomotive named Steve, like this one, will be routed in here. The second switch will only match locomotives that do not have a custom name. So that goes in there. So this is going to ignore the first and second switch. Now this last one said not name equals null, so it's going to match a locomotive with any custom name, because it's the opposite of the null. And the final locomotive does not have a name, so this is going to match the second switch, which was name equals null, like so. Now we have the type condition, and the type condition takes an item name. So as we can see here, you specify the mod ID and the item name, and if it matches the locomotive or cart that passes by the switch, it will return true. So if we put this in here, or if we read this, you can see that I've entered Railcraft cart loco steam solid, which happens to be the item name of this locomotive here, but it will not match the item name of that electric locomotive. So if we send this that way, it's going to be going straight forward. This one, however, is going to match the routing table and be sent down the separate track, like so. So for example, if you know the item name of an anchor cart, you can send all anchor carts down a separate track. Next, we have 2 routing tables. We have the ridden condition, which will check if the minecart is being ridden by a player. So ridden equals true will of course check if the cart is being ridden. So if we put this in the switch motor there, and we send the cart empty, it's going to go straight because it's not being ridden, so ridden is false. If I get in it and send it down here, it is being ridden, and is thus going to be sent to the sidetrack. Now the second routing table has the riding condition, which checks for a specific player riding the cart. So this will essentially do the same thing. If I send it down empty because I'm not riding it, it's going to go forward straight ahead, and if I'm riding it, it's going to be routed to the side. Next, we have the color condition, which takes two colors, a primary and a secondary color, and as you can see it says green, yellow, and here we have a locomotive that has been colored green and yellow, so this is the primary color, and the strip down here is the secondary color. So if I put this in here and we turn this locomotive on, and then wait for it to go the right way, please, it's going to be routed to the sidetrack. Now, you can use any of the 16 colors in Railcraft, or in Minecraft, I mean. You can also use the keyword any in one of these two positions, and that will match any color in that position. So for example, I put it in the secondary position now, so that means that the primary color has to be green on the locomotive, but the strip can have any color and it will still match the routing table and return true. Now, next we have the needs refuel condition, and this will check if the locomotive has a certain amount of fuel and water. So it needs more than half a tank of water, and I think at least 2 stacks of fuel items. Otherwise, it will trigger the needs refuel condition when it's set to true. So since this has too little water, it will be routed into the secondary track. However, if I were to refill this, throw another stone in, this is going to keep going because it's now considered having enough fuel and water. And almost last, we have the redstone condition, and this actually doesn't affect or care about the cart passing by the switch. All this cares about is if the block, in this case the routing switch motor, is receiving a redstone signal or not. So redstone equals true will only switch if the block is receiving a redstone signal, regardless of what the cart or locomotive is. Damn it. So, as you can see, this will go straight, but if I flip this lever, it's now going to toggle this switch. So it's pretty straightforward, and this obviously now pretty much works like a normal switch motor, but the difference, of course, is that you can combine this with other conditions to perform more advanced logic. Now, lastly, we're going to go back to the destination condition, or the dest condition, which can be a little more complicated than the other ones. So we have a switch set up here, as you can see, which looks a little more complicated than the other ones. In this switch here, we have a routing table where dest equals town. So we have a town in here with, and you have to imagine there's a longer distance here, of course. Now here we are at our town, And within the town, we have a sub-destination, which we'll find in here, called factory. And you can see that I've combined these two, separated by a /. Now, the symbol can be anything. It's not important to... There's no specific syntax for this. I'm just using a / because I like using them. Similar to a website address. So if we put these in here, now over here we have a separate, bigger destination called city. And then within that, we have a smaller sub-destination called district. And the concept is the same. Now, to use this, we can take a golden ticket. I was going to need to put some stuff in there. In our ticket, we can write city, or was the first one town? The first one was town, wasn't it? I believe so. Yes. So we want town, and this is going to route our locomotive. If we set the destination to town, as you can see, we have the destination set now. If we set this off, it's going to match the destination string in this switch here. Now, the second one, it did not match because this is checking for town factory. And when a routing table is checking the destination string, it checks from the start, and that will then match as much as possible. And if the destination string in the locomotive is longer than the destination string in the routing table, it's going to ignore the rest as long as the first part matches. So if we want, we can add factory, like so, to our destination string for the locomotive. And if we now set the locomotive on its way, the first part that says town is still going to match this string in here, even though it's missing the last part. But it sees the town part in the first part and then ignores the rest because this bit matches. And the second part is checking for the entire string. Now I can add something to the end of this, doesn't matter what it is, and if we send the locomotive back, it's still going to match this routing table here. However, if I just set this to factory, it is not going to match either switch. And it's now going to go straight there. So if we override this for now, make this permanently switched, the locomotive now goes straight because the first part doesn't match. It doesn't have the town bit that this is looking for. It does have the factory bit at the end, but that is not enough. So another way of doing this would be to route with sub-destinations, would be to first route into town here, and then change the destination based on something else, or route based on color or something in here. But this is more powerful and easier to use because it only uses the string itself. And of course we have the other part. So if we want this to go to city instead, we will enter city like so, and then we'll send this off, and it's going to be routed in here again, but it's not going to be routed in here. But if we add district here and then send it back out and back in, it's going to be routed in here because it now matches the entire string in here. So that's basic routing using any of the conditions on its own. Now there's going to be a part 2 where we're going to take a look at the operators and how to combine and use the conditions together, using multiple conditions together. So I will see you then.